and welcome to the Data Center Podcast, brought to you by BizClick and our sponsors for this series, the Data Center Magazine. Are you ready to plug into the future of digital infrastructure? Well, you've come to the right place. Because on the Data Center Podcast, we're exploring a world where connectivity is faster, storage is smarter, and the digital landscape is consistently evolving. Every week, we bring you straight to the source, interviewing the innovators, the engineers, and the brilliant minds building and operating the facilities that power the modern world. If you're curious about how the physical backbone of the internet is actually changing our lives, then you're in the right place. Hello and welcome to the Data Center Podcast, brought to you by BizClick and our sponsors for this episode, Data Center Magazine. Ready to plug into the future of digital infrastructure? Well, you've come to the right place. Because on the Data Center Podcast, we're exploring a world where connectivity is faster, storage is smarter, and the digital landscape is constantly evolving. Every week, we bring you straight to the source, interviewing the innovators, the engineers, and the brilliant minds building and operating the facilities that power the modern world. If you're curious about how the physical backbone of the internet is actually changing our lives, then you are in the right place. Our guest today has spent over 15 years navigating the complex worlds of civil engineering, global project delivery, and commercial strategy. From managing massive infrastructure projects in Australia to leading high-stakes engineering in Europe, she has carved out a reputation for navigating relentless timelines and high-pressure environments. Today, she is the Chief Delivery Officer at AVK, where she oversees the technical and commercial delivery of critical power solutions that keep our digital world online. But her impact goes far beyond engineering. Realising the vital need for stronger community and representation, she co-founded the Forum for Women in Data Centers, a grassroots initiative dedicated to connecting, elevating, and championing women across the digital infrastructure sector. So please welcome a champion of both critical power and cultural change, Charlotte Berry-Selwood.
Hi, good morning.
Hello. That was a very, very long intro. And ironically,
I'm very impressed you got through it. Well done.
And ironically, you've had internet issues this morning. So we're talking about how you're powering the digital backbone.
I know. Yes, this is modern day problems. But no, look, we're here, we're online. So look, delighted to be here. Thank you for that lovely intro.
Well, thank you for joining us. We want to always start with your background. So your journey into data centers, because it's an unusual journey for a woman to take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it becomes less unusual, but certainly I didn't set out with a clear vision that data centers was going to be my path, but it's very much become my entire career. So starting out with an engineering degree, with not much view as to what I was going to do, I just knew that I definitely wanted a job off the back of the university. So chose engineering because that was a job, and found myself coming out. And they weren't the work prospects that I'd hoped for. We were sort of back end of the GFC and there weren't many graduate opportunities. So took a view to move overseas to pursue my career. Ended up in Australia, which was wonderful and really enjoyed the initial challenges of sort of junior engineering, graduate engineering jobs, but kept finding myself back into management positions, project management positions, even on the engineering jobs, I'd always put my hand up to be on site. And so decided to actually seek out a role, in project delivery. And that's exactly what I found. And the first project I found myself on was a data center project. And absolutely fell in love with the industry. It was something very different. I could see that the world was only going one way, and that was a digitalized world where we were heavily reliant on sort of the infrastructure backbone that supports where we are. And I've never really strayed away from it. I've spent my entire career moving through project delivery roles, into directorships, commercially focused roles, for Colt, overseeing a global portfolio. And I think most recently now, working with AVK. Really what drew me to it was, I guess, the biggest challenges that we see. Power has become the topic. we spoke very recently. We've all been out in Cannes, enjoying the beautiful weather in the south of France, but ultimately being at a conference with, with the whole of the industry, it seems. And the hot topics there definitely focused around power and where that's going to be coming from. So that really drew me into wanting to be part of ABK and ABK's growth story. And it's been a wonderful couple of years here, and we've seen exactly that, huge growth in the industry, huge growth for us, as an organisation, and I'm just really enjoying the challenge of something new.
So, I mean, civil engineering as well is also quite male dominated.
It is, yeah. I think there was about 10 girls on the course of about 100 blokes. So, it was definitely swayed that way. I'm hoping to see those numbers start to change. But I think engineering in general is still seen as, a man's world, a male topic to take on. We really do need to obviously change that. It's an amazing career and an amazing thing to go and study and be part of. I think for me, I looked at, what I enjoyed at school, and that typically was sort of maths and science. Wasn't brilliant at English, despite being advised to be a lawyer at one stage, which was a horrible suggestion. But it never really sat with me in terms of my skill set. I then, sought out degrees that aligned with the topics that I tended to do better in, and fell into engineering. But there definitely wasn't something at that point in my life where I said, oh, I really clearly definitely want to be an engineer. I really wasn't sure, and I think that's the case for a lot of young people who are starting to look at career prospects or university or sort of further education. I would be a liar if I said, oh, I had a very, very clear idea of what I wanted to do as a profession. I think I was extremely fortunate that engineering really aligned itself so well with sort of project delivery, project management, because actually that's where my skill set really does lie, and that's where I found myself excelling in the early phases of my career.
So, for young girls then at school who are really good at maths and science, and they're not so drawn to whatever you'd call maybe the more creative subjects or the pinker subjects, how do we encourage them to go on into STEM roles?
I'm going to challenge you there. I think engineering is hugely creative. I think it's creative problem solving, and actually, I think that young girls who would maybe pigeonhole themselves into, oh, I'm creative. There's so much creativity actually in these type of roles. So my biggest advice would be never ever pigeonhole yourself and say, well, I'm good at only this. I would be very, very surprised if you weren't also good at other things. And actually, we want diverse thinkers. We want diverse thinkers into engineering. We want diverse thinkers into the industry, because you will excel and you'll bring different solutions to the table. So I would challenge that creativity. And I hate the pinker subjects. I hate that expression, because I honestly think everyone can be good at everything. Talent actually doesn't take you very far. Hard work, grit, and determination take you all the way. Talent gives you this much. Any superstar athlete will tell you that. It's doing the same thing over and over on repetition until you get good at it. Now, I would definitely implore people to try and choose things that they enjoy. But I would also say to people, you will find a lot of enjoyment through being successful at something. So never rule something out until you actually really understand it and give it a go. I so often think that we watch TV shows or we watch things and we see somebody being a chef or somebody being a doctor, or, these quite traditional roles. But actually, what does it mean to do those jobs? When you scratch the surface, what does it mean to be a surgeon? How do you get there? How many years of A&E do you have to do before they slice and dice? And what does that mean in terms of your family life? What's work-life balance for one of those amazing jobs? If you can align your values to job roles, and people have different values. Some people want to make lots and lots of money and travel the world. That might be their complete ambition in life. What jobs actually get you that? Because it might not be the ones that you think. So, my advice to young girls who are looking at different subjects and what to study and what careers they could potentially have, the biggest advice is look at your values, look at what you believe you'd like to achieve out of life, and start to align those to jobs. And really get to know what it means to do those jobs. Because for me, careers advice at school was extremely limited. Extremely limited. I had no idea really what a civil engineer did. I don't even think I knew what a civil engineer did, even when I started doing the degree. I had just understood that it was a career. Engineering was fairly well respected. It aligned itself nicely with maths, which is what I was, better at school. That was a very limited view of actually what it was. And I think there's so much more you can explore through, really pushing yourself to investigate careers and find out what it means to do those jobs.
Do you know, I agree with you 100%. The pink and blue thing, I find so difficult, but there's no easier way to describe it.
Traditional roles, like say traditional subjects that have leaned, female bias. So, you look at teaching, hugely leans female bias. We would love to see more male teachers because we need male role models. And again, diverse thinkers. You want people from different backgrounds in every role because you'll get the absolute best out of people, and you'll push the industries forward. So you'll push education forward, you'll push engineering forward. Doesn't matter what it is. We desperately want diverse thinkers, people from different backgrounds in all pursuits.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the Forum for Women in Data Centers, the FWD.
Yes.
So you co-founded the FWD, a London-centric community for data center women in data centers. So
Yeah.
what was the exact moment where you realized that you needed to form this forum so that you could encourage more women into the roles, give them a voice, a platform?
So what happened was we'd all been moaning about it for a long time. So we've got a few, kind of senior leaders within the industry that had been griping, mainly griping about the events that we all attend. So whilst Cannes is an absolutely wonderful space, you're met with a sea of blue shirts,
Stripy blue shirts.
It's not for you. There's the truth. If you're in a space where you are the minority, it's not for you, it's for somebody else. And so we were all having a bit of a gripe about the fact that the events that we so often attended, being invited to golfing away days where not many of us have had the opportunity to play golf, doesn't feel great. And that probably was the catalyst. Barbara who's my wonderful colleague from Cundall's, she had organised a bit of a drinks in London, and that was unofficially, if you like, the first meetup, because at that event we got round and we talked about, hey, we could do this we could do this officially and create something, a bit of a community where we could run drinks events which just women, and something that's for you. So there is now a space that is literally designed for you to come, network, meet people, meet like-minded people, get a bit of careers advice, which is so important, especially in the early phases of your career. It's one of the most important things you can do. Get out there, network, and meet people. So that's really what it was born from. It was born from a frustration of not having anything for us. And a bit of a selfish pursuit, probably wanting a nice drinks event that where we could all meet up and chat. But that really was the moment where we sort of started it off. Obviously, it has grown arms and legs since then, and has become something quite different. So there's a group of about 10 of us who get together every month. Actually, our monthly meeting is today. And we, are very fortunate to be able to get a little bit of sponsorship off of our organisations to allow us to host a number of different events. And what we try and do is have about 10 a year, and they are really diverse. So anything from networking events to we've just piloted our first mentorship scheme, where we've got senior leaders in the organisation supporting juniors through the early phases of their career and giving them that sort of leadership and advice. We have run health events where we did last year did a menopause event. Got up some very willing, I want to say victims, but really participants, and had a company come in to put them in vests that simulate the effects of the menopause, and then we put them on a panel on stage and asked them questions, and it was hilarious for all of us watching, but actually a really important message to the male leaders in these organisations, where they are the policymakers, they are the decision takers. And it's not often, I sit as a bit of an anomaly being on the board here. Not often you have a female voice at an executive level. If you're a policymaker and you're making policies for other people where you have never experienced what they are experiencing, that's a very difficult task to get right. So it was to really encourage the the male leaders that we have across this industry, to talk to your staff, understand the plight and predicament that they're going through at the different life phases. We want to retain talent in this industry desperately. The cost to replace people is staggering, and they actually just don't exist. If you can give them this much support through a challenging or a changing state of their life, they are so much more likely to stay in the industry and continue to bring the excellent work that they do for you. So it was a wonderful event, and it was a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I was really grateful that we were able to host something like that. Especially, we see new employment laws coming in, as we speak, around all of these things around menopause, around people's health and well-being, around mental health. And so actually to be able to be a positive in the industry, say, hey, this isn't something 50% of the population are going to go. If you support this, you will be able to retain talent in your organizations, and you will be the part of the catalyst for change. So it was a wonderful thing to be able to do. And so yeah, it's an amazing organisation, and the women who give up, we're all volunteers. We'll give up our time to do it. So I'm just incredibly grateful for what we've been able to put out there so far.
In a world driven by AI, cloud computing, and massive scale, the digital infrastructure industry never stops moving. But are you keeping pace? Stay ahead of the curve with Data Center Magazine, your ultimate global hub for data center insights. From sustainability and cooling innovations to edge computing and cyber security, we bring you the exclusive interviews with the industry's giants, deep dive features, and the latest breaking tech trends. Join the global community shaping the digital future. Visit datacentermagazine.com today to never miss an update. That's datacentermagazine.com. So one thing you mentioned there is the juniors coming in. When junior women come in, it's so important that they have visibility of other women in powerful positions. So, I'm a big believer in, seeing your role models. So how have you allowed that sort of thing to happen? Is that something that you champion with FWD as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've hosted panel discussions where we bring, women who also do wonderful work in the industry, but they might not be part of the FWD team. We bring them in onto panel discussions, let them see technical experts. I think it's really important that young women see women in lots of different roles, diverse roles, from HR leadership through to technical excellence, through to managerial. It's really important that we show that there is a complete profile across the industry. So it doesn't matter what you have come in to do, you can still see success at the top levels and female representation. So absolutely, we champion that. Me on a personal level, and actually the rest of the women who are part of our organisation. We often are on stage, at other conferences, at other events, talking, and I think that, again, it's what you said, it's visibility. If you can see it, you can be it. You need to have, female leadership on those panels. If all you ever see is that homogenous kind of male voice coming from a panel, that doesn't represent you. You are not there on that stage. So it's so important for women, to see, a diverse range of people being up there, being the experts, being the leaders, because it does foster that belief, hey, if they've done it, I can do it. And there is a success path for me here within this career, within this industry. Look, I can see it. So it's something that I feel very passionately about. I don't love public speaking, ironically. I really do it because I do think it's such an important thing for us to champion.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of the time with diversity initiatives, it does become a bit, you're preaching to the choir. Everyone who's listening agrees with you, but it's not them who matters. How can the industry do a better job of bringing, men and allies and just everyone else into the conversation?
So I have a bit of a theory on this. I think you're right. If you want to talk about morality or doing the right thing, everyone can get on board with that, right? Yeah, we know we need to be more diverse. And it just sounds like a tick box. Like everyone's going to say that statement to you. No one's going to be like, no, I don't think we should be more diverse. Actually, everyone is going to agree with you. But actually, the change has to be driven by action. So what I try and do is implore people to undertake this, I don't ever talk about fairness. I don't really talk about even sort of championing women or anything like that. I just talk about money. So the statistics don't lie. Companies where diverse leadership are statistically more likely to make more money, up to about 30%. So if you've got diverse boards, you as a company will make significantly more money. We also want to talk about the future. We have a talent problem within this industry whereby we haven't invested sufficiently in bringing talent to the forefront and continuing to recruit into the industry with people who are able to step into either leadership roles or technical roles. Because of the growth journey, it's not everybody's fault. We've had a huge growth journey, but fundamentally we're behind the 8 ball. So how do you widen that net? How do you widen that talent pool? Well, targeting women is an easy way to do it because there's not that many women in the industry, but there's still 50% of the populace that are women. So that's a good way to start shoring up your future as a business to ensure that you're attracting talent from all talent pools that are available. So that's, I think, some of the best ways to engage people. And that sounds maybe a bit harsh that people are uncaring. It's not that. It's fundamentally we're businesses. So you're not tapping into people's personal moralities or how they feel about the women in their lives. They may champion the women in their lives wonderfully, but when you're asking someone to take on an extra facet of their work, to do something different, that's a different ask. And I think really penetrating to the root of what we are as businesses. We're here to make money. If you're not profitable as a business, you cease to be. So really sort of cutting down to the root of that and saying to people, look, if you want to be a profitable business and you want to have the staff to continue to drive it, you're going to have to do something different. And if you do something different, the results speak for themselves. You are going to, very, very likely you're going to make significantly more money and shore yourself up for the future. So I think that's a brilliant way to try and sort of drive allyship and drive not just allyship on a piece of paper, or somebody writing you a check, here's £1,000, go and host an event. Wonderful, that's great, and it goes a long way. I'm not dismissing the need for funding, but actually, if you want to change things within your own organisations, it has to come from the top and it has to be driven. Nothing gets done if nobody drives it. So linking it to your business success, I think, is a huge part of what we need to do to ensure that people really take this seriously.
I think it's really smart actually to remove emotion from the decision. And I think it's something that often women are criticised for, being too emotional, whatever that means. So if you remove that completely, then they can't blame you for being too emotional.
No, that's fair. But I would really argue that the men in my life are a lot more emotional than the women in my life.
I would agree.
In a crisis, I know who I'm ringing, and it's not blokes. So I don't know about this whole "you're too emotional," but yes, I agree. If it gets levied at us, and I think it's just not the discussion to be having. It's not an emotive decision. It's not even a moral decision. It's business success.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the start of your career. Were there moments where you felt you were treated like lesser than your male counterparts? Asked to take the notes in a meeting or do the coffee run or, sit quietly in a corner while the men talked?
Yeah, all the time. Still happens now. It's unfortunately we have a societal problem. So this, yes, the industry, has its challenges. It's very, very male dominated and hasn't maybe moved with the times, but the times are also still problematic. We have a much wider, societal problem that we need to remedy globally before we see true change in how women are treated. Me personally, yeah, absolutely. Through, especially through those junior years, I got into project management roles relatively quickly. I was maybe 23, 24 years old. I looked extremely young, so that doesn't help either. But, they would just dismiss me. They would not see me there as to run the meeting, make the decisions, know what I was talking about. There was always a constant need to prove myself before anyone would listen to me. So I had to there was always 2 or 3 steps I needed hurdles I needed to jump over before anyone was prepared to listen to me. Whereas, if my male counterpart walked into the room, they just get an immediate, okay, he must know what he's doing.
Mm.
So there's that sort of prejudice bias that exists. So it is that much harder for women, and it can feel quite exhausting at times. You're just there to do a job, and you're kind of going, "Oh God, this again." But yeah, absolutely. Even down to doing coffee runs. Unpromotable work is a real problem, and it's something that I absolutely, any young woman that comes into this industry or any other industry, do not do unpromotable work. Do not be the one to organise the birthday parties, run around sorting out everything. You won't be paid for it. You won't be promoted for it. And that's not to say don't be helpful. That's not to not don't be a team player. Make sure it's not always you, because if that becomes a thing that you do, suddenly you're not doing your work anymore. I say, oh, Sharon's wonderful. She always goes and organises everything. Yeah, but are you going to promote Sharon for that? No, you're not. So it's really important that you don't get pigeonholed into those, again, really traditional roles that women fill. And I have always been quite conscious in to not do those things willingly, because again, I just saw that it wasn't valued. But yeah, I think it's a difficult thing that we have to navigate, but it's a difficult thing that we all have to navigate in our lives. It's something that if you speak to any woman, she has experienced this in her day-to-day life, let alone at work. So we learn very young to navigate that, and how to get through it. It shouldn't be a barrier to you choosing a career in a male-dominated field. You know how to handle those things. It will be something that you will come across. I can't sit here and say, no, it's going to be fun. You will, but you know how to navigate it. And again, it's that kind of determination to say, well, I'm not going to let that be the defining item that stops me progressing in my career.
So let's talk about then how to handle them. So when you encounter these biases today, with all of your knowledge and your label and your big title, how do you handle these, and what advice would you give to yourself when you were younger, when you were facing those same situations?
I think firstly, it's fundamentally stay calm. Never ever rise to anything that's put before you. I think staying calm and staying in control is the best thing you can do. I've had very aggressive conversations, very aggressive meetings. Staying very, very calm in a situation where you're faced with either aggression or quite rude, dismissive behaviour is your best tool in your arsenal. Sitting back and listening, and ensuring that the answers that you give are very correct, and are fact-based. We don't need to get into opinions. We don't need to get into trading emotions. And actually, that's what I do find from a lot of my male colleagues, that we get into that space very quickly. Trade in facts. Nobody can argue with you. Much harder to argue in facts. But I think also never stop believing that you know what you're talking about. Your value does not sit with with the individuals in the room. Your value sits with you as a person, and the career that you have forged for yourself. So having that kind of unwavering understanding that look, I'm here because I'm paid to be here. I'm paid to be here because they believe I'm competent, and no amount of dismissive behaviour or somebody being rude or aggressive can change that. And that is it's a difficult mindset, because of course it feels poor in the moment, if it doesn't feel good in the moment. But having that understanding of yourself and being able to go into those situations going, hey, I may face this. I've faced this all my life, but actually I 100% know that I'm meant to be here, and I'm going to deal in facts. I'm going to keep my calm. That will earn you the respect of the people in the room, and you will see it less and less. So as you enter that space again, you won't be met with that same. You'll meet it the first time, but you won't meet it the second time. And that's, I think, also keeping that in the back of your mind, that people will be dismissive in the first instant, but that will stop. They'll have to stop that behavior, because otherwise they expose themselves. I think also then, off the back of that, if somebody did continue that behavior, don't be afraid to report it. Nobody is allowed to speak to you like rubbish. That's not an acceptable way to be. So if you do find that it's not just somebody being kind of a little bit standoffish, dismissive in the first instant, again, maybe sort of holding some of the societal biases that exist, and you find it's a continued behavior, I would go and report it, because it's not something that we should stand for. And if you're not seeing the support of your organisation, certainly, organisations like FWD, reaching out to them and seeking advice from us that have been through it for many, many years, they'll always be willing to help. It's help is the most powerful word in your arsenal. I've never asked for help and not got it. If you say to someone, please help me, people will happily help you. I think people are so frightened to ask for help. They see it as, oh, I'll be seen as incompetent. It's just the opposite. I ask for help every day. So I think, if you're stuck in a situation like that and it's not improving, definitely don't put up with it, and definitely do seek out support, because it's not an acceptable way to do business, and it's not an acceptable way for us to run businesses nowadays.
It's nice to hear the help word, because I think a lot of women, especially, don't ask for the help because they don't want to be seen as weak, whereas their male counterparts could easily ask for the help without appearing so weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is a barrier that women definitely need to be able to jump over, that we haven't really been taught to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we position that as a sort of a weakness. You cannot be expected to come into any job and know everything, but you also can't walk through life expected to know everything. God, I've got vast swathes of information that's not available to me. I mean, I've got wonderful technical engineers who work in my team, and I regularly drag into meetings. Much more junior staff, and I pull them in and say, help me, I don't understand this, talk me through it, make it easy, put it in layman's terms. I did it yesterday. I was looking at a contract and I didn't really agree with it, and I rang one of my commercial directors, and I said, what do you think? Because I don't think this is right. I ask for help every day, and anyone that doesn't must be amazing, because I don't believe it's possible to have all of that knowledge. And also, it shows to me a real weakness in person if you don't ask for help. If you go into everything thinking you are an expert and that you know everything, you're doomed to fail, because we navigate through life. You want to take out a mortgage, go to a mortgage advisor. You're not an expert in these things. You God forbid you end up in court, go get a lawyer. You're not an expert in this. So understanding our own limitations is hugely important, both in your professional career and personal life. I don't understand people who don't ask for help. It's I would see it as actually a barrier for me. It would be something that I'd be bringing someone in saying, hey, you don't ask for help, and actually you try and battle through things that you don't fully understand. That's actually not appropriate. I want you to seek the expertise of people who have got that grounding in knowledge in the topic that you're trying to work through.
Absolutely. So we have run out of time, but I'm going to ask you one more question. So what is your ultimate vision for the Forum for Women in Data Centers over the next few years?
Wow, that's a good question. I definitely want it to continue to do what it's doing now, have the events. I never want that to stop. I want there to be the space that women, young women, older women, all women can come and feel comfortable, and that it is for them. It's absolutely. That's why it's a women forum for women in data centers. It's literally for you. I would love to see us being able to expand some of the offerings. I love the health side of it that we're exploring, women's health and how that affects people in the workplace. And I'd love to see us running more and more of those type events over the next few years, and bringing more of the male leadership into those events. So really targeted hosting, going, hey, you're a policymaker, you're a decision maker in this business. Look at what you can do. Look at how you can make it better for the women in your organization. So I think that will be a key focus over the next few years. And then really trying to get into schools. It's a bit of a barrier for us at the moment. We're doing it here at ABK. So I went and did a school talk last month. We're going to start running them on a sort of quarterly basis, where we offer up staff into local schools where we're doing projects and say, hey, we can come and talk to the kids about the different careers that are available in this space. Would you like us to come in for half a day? We've got the slide decks ready. And it exposes lots of different people in the business, which is great. It's good public speaking practice, but it's also just really positive for the school. So I'd love to see FWD get more heavily involved in that and go and talk to young women right down at the primary school level, right the way up to just that, pre-university, that decision time, when you're sort of 16, 17, 18 and deciding what your future will look like. And I think that that's a really powerful expansion of what we're offering, because we all want to see more women in this industry, but the only way to do that is to market ourselves. We are the worst marketers as a data center industry, and there's no reason for it. We could be out there saying, "Hey, come and have an amazing, lucrative, exciting career in a growing industry that is part of the future." I think that's a great sales pitch, and we should just be getting out there and telling everyone that.
Fantastic. And to be honest, I would have absolutely loved if you came into my school to give me a talk. I think it will help, you know, loads and loads of young girls.
Oh, great. Well, that's nice to know. It's nice to know we hopefully can do a bit of good. But yeah, it's looks something exciting that we're starting to explore. So hopefully you'll see a lot more of that in the coming years.
Brilliant. Well, you have been a fantastic guest, so thank you so much, Charlotte.
Well, thank you. Take care.
Take care. Thanks for joining us as we analyse and unpacked the complex world of digital infrastructure. Before you go, don't forget we want to hear from you. Got a tough question about power usage effectiveness, a tricky issue with cooling optimization, or maybe you're an industry leader with an incredible data center innovation story to share and want to appear on the show. Send us your burning questions or your speaker pitch. You can easily drop us a line via the contact form on the Data Center Magazine website. We'll be back next week to help you build bigger, run cooler, and maybe even achieve the zero carbon goal. But until then, keep those racks full and your bandwidth high. See you next time.